Miraculous Mamas podcast. I'm your host, Elizabeth Joy, and we believe in empowering people through storytelling and education. And guess what, guys? Today's my birthday. I am 35 years old, and I thought that I was 35 this whole last year. So it's really like I didn't age a year, because if you would ask me in July how old I was, I would have said 35. So I don't know if any of you have had years like that. But I'm officially 35 and not feeling any older. I think you're kind of always young at heart. I have lots of aches and pains, but I'm also 8 months pregnant, so I'm going to contribute it to that. But yeah, super exciting stuff. Vito and I went on a date. I realized in 2021 that we had gone on 2, maybe 3 dates the entire year by ourselves. And I would like to go on more this year, but we're also adding another baby in this year. So it could be a little difficult, but this time of year we try to go on a couple because it's my birthday, and then Valentine's Day we usually eat at home. Vito usually cooks me dinner. And then our anniversary is the 22nd of February. So we have some stuff to celebrate this time of year. So we usually go on a couple dates. But then last year we didn't go out again until like August or September. Like it was, I was like, we haven't been on a date in 7 months. That was crazy. So really want to try to figure out how to make that work. Because even now, like trying to picture somebody babysitting Jovi, which I'm fine with now, but then like a baby that's a few months old, like, I don't know about that. The baby might be coming on dates with us for a little while. But yeah, it's been crazy learning how to adjust with the ebbs and flows of life. And that's what you do. You adjust, you figure it out. But we want to work really hard at prioritizing our relationship and our marriage. And, we definitely know that there's seasons of life. Like I said, I mean, we went 7 months without going on a date. So, we know that there's seasons, and, we have to be flexible, but also really trying to make time for each other and our relationship as well. So, which we usually do when we put Jovi to bed at night, since she goes to bed at like 7. So, but it's just nice to get out and not be at home. Because when you're at home, it's like, oh, I got to fold the laundry. I got to do all these different things. There's so many distractions. But when you are out of the house, you can't do any of that. You can just focus on each other and having a good time. I'm super excited about today's episode. We have on a fellow mama who came up with this amazing app. Her name's Amy VanHaren, and she founded Pumpspotting, which is a really cool app, and I'm going to have her go ahead and tell us all about it. So we will dive right into the interview. If you didn't get the chance to listen to last week's episode, make sure you go back and listen. We have on one of the co-founders of Needed, and the whole episode is about prenatal vitamins, what you need to be looking for, how they fill in the gaps, what kind of things are cutting it, what aren't, and plus there is a link to a prenatal guide. So you don't have to buy from the company Needed. Those are the prenatals I take and I love, but they also just give free advice, like guides for you. They just want you to be as healthy as you can be and make sure that you're getting the supplements that you need. So I love that they offer that just to anybody. So make sure you go back and listen. All right, we're going to dive into today's interview. All right, everyone, I have Amy VanHaren here with me, who is the founder of Pumpspotting, and it's this amazing app that she's going to tell us all about after her lonely experience being a new breastfeeding, working, traveling new mama, and recognized that in order to be successful with breastfeeding, which we know it takes a lot to be able to be successful in that, parents need support and practical resources. So she invented this amazing app that she's going to tell us all about today, and everything that it's evolved into and how she is helping out the pumping and breastfeeding community. So thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Oh, thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here. And Thanks for having me share my story and for all you do. We need these conversations more than ever. So,
yeah. Well, I mean, I thankfully worked from home most of the time. I work as a birth doula. So when I got called into births this last year, I would have to go pump. But even at the hospital, I was very surprised. There was nowhere for me to pump. I'd go sit in my car or I would go into like the little snack room where people are walking in and out of, which, I mean, it's in the mother and baby unit. So I'm like, whatever. But I mean, some strange guy could just like walk in and I'm just sitting there pumping. There was really nowhere for me to go. And I was employed by the hospital. So it was just super interesting to me that in a mother and baby and birthing unit, there's nowhere for me to go pump. So I would love for you to just kind of share your experience and how you came up with this app.
Yeah, I think what's so interesting, and actually I'll definitely share my story, but it's even in the past, 6 or 7 years that I've been doing this work, things have evolved and changed, and there's some really positive momentum happening. But I think what really still amazes me is that breastfeeding and pumping is still so invisible that and for me, it's so much about a lifestyle that it's really your life when you have a new baby and you're in those early days, no matter how you do it, whether you're nursing or pumping or bottle feeding or any version of it, baby has to be fed every couple of hours. And it is so you build your life around it. And whether you're working or running out to the grocery store or just working from home or what have you, for me, that was really the onus of where it began, was that this was my lifestyle. This was my reality. And yet it's this very interesting thing that people don't talk about and they don't accommodate and they don't bring into things. And it's in some ways, it's such a juxtaposition because it's sort of omnipresent during the early days and months and years of breastfeeding. And I think more and more, I think about that a lot, how we think holistically about that experience. But, for me, my background is not in maternal health. And I never thought that I would be on this quest to help so many other parents nourish their families. But I'm really excited that this is where it has led me. I was with my second child. I had to go back to work when he was 6 weeks old because I ran my own company and there is no maternity leave, no one to take over. And I was really passionate about breastfeeding because I had seen how healthy my first daughter had been. And I enjoyed all those moments of bonding and all the things that came with it. But I was in this reality of just like traveling. I was flying across the country every month. I was trying to run my company. I was away from my baby all the time. And so I was like, not only all the emotions around guilt and choices and what this looks like, but just in this logistical chaos of like nursing or pumping or thinking about the next nursing and pumping session or like pumping on airplanes and pumping on bathroom floors and shipping hundreds of ounces of milk and pumping in Ubers and constantly looking for places. And I just had a moment when I was like all consumed by it. And I was really miserable. It was like isolating. I felt like I was so alone, always under a baby in the middle of the night or in a pump room, or just having to remove myself from the workplace to pump all the time, from social connections. And I just was like overwhelmed beyond all belief. And I really just wanted to quit. I was like, I cannot keep doing this. I can't keep working. I can't keep feeding this way. And yet I didn't really want to quit either of those things. And I had a moment when I was like, it was like my third red eye I'd taken in a matter of like 8 weeks, because you have to get back home as soon as possible because you want to pump as infrequently. So I was like taking red eye after red eye. And I remember sitting on a very sticky, dirty bathroom floor in the San Francisco airport. And I like, at this point, my breast pump sounded like Darth Vader to me. It was like evilly talking to me as I was doing this. And I remember the bathroom being really crowded and sweating and, which is so conducive to producing milk when you're stressed like that. But there was a line of women, needing to use the bathroom and get in. And here I am like before I get on the plane, having to pump. And for me, that was like the total breaking point. And in that moment, my sister sent me this text and she said, I know you're, going through all these things, but I just want to tell you, you've got this. You're doing an amazing job. And for me, it was like a light bulb went off. Like, oh, I am not the only woman who has navigated this world of nursing and pumping and working. And yet I felt like it. And so to me, I just started to think about how we could connect all of us. And we were always on our phones. And so to me, the power of technology, it's in our hands. It's where we're turning. Can I build something that makes us, easy for us to share spaces to pump and nurse? So we're off these bathroom floors and getting out of places, and encouragement with one another, and just like a community that was built to really understand all the subtleties and shades and emotional turmoil and all those things that really go with the feeding experience. For me, I just couldn't stop thinking about it. And that's the onus for what drove me to build the Pumpspotting app, is I just saw a better way to connect all of us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It is so hard. I resonate with the sound of Darth Vader with your pump. I've talked on here a lot how I absolutely hate pumping. It's really hard for me. But I had to right off the bat because my daughter was in the NICU for a week. And so I was pumping constantly. And, and it's so tough. We are going to take a quick break from this episode because we all know that we are what we eat. And we also know how hard it is to plan and prep each meal each week. I know I get decision fatigue. It's like making breakfast, lunch, and dinner every single day. And Splendid Spoon will send you plant-based, gluten-free, ready-made meals delivered right to your door. And it saves you a trip to the grocery store, as well as having to buy specialty ingredients that can add up. We recently tried them, and I was a really big fan. I'm going to share with you my favorite meals of theirs in just a minute. But Splendid Spoon believes in plant-based eating as the single most effective tool that we have to feel our best day in and day out. And when you make a habit out of plant-based eating, it allows you to get the best version of yourself with side benefits like more energy, weight loss, improved sleep, and better skin. I loved their vegan meatballs and marinara. That was one of my favorites, along with the tomato, quinoa, and chili soup. It's also really nice to have the prepackaged smoothies. We're big smoothie fans, and it's just like a quick and easy snack that's already made. Easy for me to give Jovi some of it, and I can have some, and we can just get a little boost in our day and know that we are putting something healthy into our bodies. And you can get started and save $35 on your first order of delicious plant-based meals at splendidspoon.com/mamas35. That's splendidspoon.com/mamas35 to save $35 on your first order. That's only $6.66 per meal. Thank you, Splendid Spoon, for sponsoring this podcast. So I would love for you to tell us how the app works then, because you're saying that it helps you share spaces. So the app is called Pumpspotting.
Yeah.
And how does it work?
Yeah. So we have built it and continue to build it to really be kind of a complete breastfeeding support solution. And so I think the easiest way to think about it is it's really about being the connection point, the centerpiece for whatever you need on that journey. So you download the app and you tell us your breastfeeding goal. How do you want to make it through today? Do you want to make it 6 weeks? Do you want to make it, as long as you can? What does this journey look like? You tell us your lifestyle. Mm-hmm. So are you a mom of a NICU baby? Are you a mom of multiples? Are you exclusively pumping, or are you working or traveling, or all these identifiers that really impact what your feeding journey looks like and how you might like to connect to other people. And then the app is really journey based to kind of walk you through that. And so the main component is the community, where we have a global network of parents on the app, and you can ask questions and share milestone wins and encouragement and all those things. In fact, we have parents from 100 13 countries. So it's a very robust global community of parents. It's non-judgmental. It's really supportive. And then there is the Pumpspot feed, where you can search and find. It's sort of like Yelp meets Boob, places to nurse and pump all over the world. And moms share them and rate them. And, everywhere from the pizza joint that has friendly wait staff to, the shoe shine between gate A5 and the airport, and just all those like hidden gems and public places to make it really easy to find places to nurse and pump. And then we have a lactation consultant who does chats and answers questions on the app live on Mondays. And then you can always contact directly for one-on-one appointments. And then we have all kinds of content and love notes that are centered around your due date and your back to work date. So it really thinks about what is this journey from pregnancy through weaning, and what might you need at every stage? Are you in a crisis and you need an expert? Do you need a place physically to pump? Is it, 2 a.m. and you just not slept for 12 days and you need someone else to say, I see your commitment and your devotion and you're doing an amazing job? It's sort of built to meet all your needs.
That's amazing. I love how you brought up the back to work date, because I feel like that's also another area that maybe there's a lack of support. I mean, there's tons of pregnancy apps, right? I have like 4 on my phone for pregnancy tracking. There's not tons for postpartum, and not tons. I mean, there's really nothing for going back to work. And if that's a goal, if you're like, hey, I need to be back to work at this point, when am I supposed to start pumping? How much do I need to be pumping? How do I, nothing about it. You're up Googling. So that's cool that you can kind of set that as a date in your calendar on there too, of something that you're working towards.
Yeah. And I think the way we've learned from talking to so many parents that you're so right. I mean, I know this from personal experience. You've got a story. I love, one of my favorite things is when I meet women and they tell me their back to work story, or their like craziest pumping stories or what have you. It's like so universal to hear these amazing stories. But definitely, I think going back to work, and the statistics show that is when the vast majority of women stop pumping or breastfeeding, because it's so hard. It's so hard to do it. It's so hard logistically to schedule with child caretakers who, when you're not with your baby and in the middle of the day, if either does your company offer a place to pump, and how do you schedule your life around that? And when you get there, there's all these things you need to know. Again, like every stage of feeding brings new things, new elements of, your milk supply and how it flows, or milk storage things you never thought about on this level that you need to before. And so that's like really helping with content and advice and insights, and things that are very scheduled around that time period are really vital. And in fact, one of the things we did so we launched the Pumpspotting app and we started to really build and grow the community. And then we had a moment where we thought, if we're really going to build this app to serve every type of feeding parent and breastfeeding parent, we really need to understand, what does it look like for every mom in every place? And, what does it look like in certain regions? And what does it look like if you're working in retail versus in a corporate office, or, because it's so different, and it's so similar and so different in so many ways. And so to do that, we kind of had this crazy idea that we were going to get out there and meet as many parents as possible. And so I bought a 40-foot RV. It was 25 years old. It had a broken stair and a leaky roof, and it literally had an airbrushed leopard on the back of it.
Nice.
So very old RV, but someone had started to turn the inside into what was a home, what felt really like a unique home. And we just had this vision. We said, what if we take this vehicle across the country and we invite as many parents on it as possible? And we turned it into a beautiful nursing and pumping oasis. And we would pull up at birthing centers and hospitals and the St. Louis Fair. And we pulled up at NASA and companies, and just like all over the place, everywhere across the country. We stopped in over 60 states. And moms would come on board and sit with one another, and we would hold their babies, and they could talk to a lactation consultant. And we had all kinds of breast pumps that you could like get to know, what does this one do? Do I need that one? If my latch isn't working, all those questions answered, and really just like a source of nourishment. The same way we do on the app, we kind of did it in a physical location. And it was so powerful to see what would happen was moms would come on the bus and you could almost physically see them carrying the weight of, they have the baby, they have the pump or the diaper bag, and all these things, and all the emotions of, am I good enough? Am I producing enough milk? Am I doing this right as a mother? And all those things that that float around in our head all the time. And after spending, even 30 minutes amongst other women and having someone offer them food and, talk to, like, give them a piece of advice or something, and really just be able to say, like, I'm not alone, and someone sees me and someone honors me, they would leave the bus lighter. Mm-hmm. Like a weight had been lifted. And it was such like a transformational experience. And to be able to witness that again and again, it just blew my mind. And it sort of made me more passionate about the importance of this support and that experience and how we have to build it. But where I started with this is while we were on tour, then we really started to understand that workplaces genuinely, I think, want to support women who are pumping and in this, but they just have very little concept of how to do that. Mm-hmm. And they've been given very little guidance and structure and what have you, that like a place is vital and time to pump. But it's about so much more than that. It's really about understanding the needs and the emotional needs and how you talk about it and bring it to life. And so that's why last year we launched Pumpspotting for Business, which is really an employee benefit. So companies can bring Pumpspotting on board for their employees, and we essentially help them create a breastfeeding friendly culture and environment. And we're really excited about the progress and the fact that we're really making companies start to think about how they serve us as parents during this time period and how we can make changes.
Yeah, that's really cool. I've heard so many stories from people who, like, their company says that they support it, but then they get like a 15-minute break and they have to spend 5 minutes of that walking to the location. And then you have to wash your parts and you have to walk back. And it's like, this just isn't sustainable. Like I can't, that's 15 minutes. That's how long it takes me to get there to set up. And then by then you have to leave, it's like that just isn't how it works.
No, it isn't. And I think that just the time commitment, they've done the research. And if you breastfeed any form of it, pumping, breastfeeding, all of it, for 1 year, it's 1,800 hours. And that's the equivalent of a full-time job. So if you already have a full-time job, like the demand and the weight. And so, for employers to understand that. And also on the flip side, it's just so beneficial for companies to support moms in doing this, because healthy moms and babies and, emotionally healthy, physically healthy, all of that, they mean less medical claims, less sick days, less just, there's so much good all across the board in supporting this. It's really a no-brainer, but I think it's just giving companies the tools to be able to make the changes they need to support.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We're going to take a quick break. It's a new year, which means you might have to renew your finances and go through them. Do you know why that there's free trials that renew without your consent? It's a business scam to get money from you. Don't let greedy corporations pocket your money. Download Truebill and take control of your subscriptions. Truebill is the new app that helps you identify and stop paying for subscriptions that you don't need, want, or simply forgot about. On average, people save up to $720 a year with Truebill. Because companies make subscriptions hard to cancel, Truebill makes it incredibly simple. You just link your accounts and they will cancel your unwanted subscriptions with just one tap. And your Truebill concierge is there when you need them to cancel unwanted subscriptions, so you don't have to deal with it. I love it. I got scammed into one of those things. I don't know how, but like a couple years ago, I signed up for this magazine for like a food and wine and a travel magazine for like $1 for the year. But then after that, they charge you $40 each subscription for the year. And I didn't even know. I like went on my way just paying $80 a year in these subscriptions, which I obviously would have canceled if I knew that I was paying for them. And Truebill helped me see that and made it super, super easy. Truebill has over 2 million users and has helped them save over $100 million. Like Matthew B., who says, in a matter of seconds, I saved $660 for the year on my DirecTV bill, saved $120 for the year on my SiriusXM bill, and saved $840 a year on car insurance. So don't fall for subscription scams. Start canceling today at truebill.com/mamas. Go right now, truebill.com/mamas. It could save you thousands a year. Truebill.com/mamas. Did you see a difference or any shift kind of happen with the pandemic? Because I know a lot of people started working from home. And I had a pandemic baby. When did I have her? September 2020. And since I was home all the time, I never like covered up when I was nursing. And then I remember and we never like went out to eat or really did anything. So I remember the first time kind of being somewhere and I'm like, oh, I should try to cover her. And she was like, what are you doing? Like, you don't put a blanket over me. I'm like, where do I go?
It's so interesting. I think, the whole, and it'll be so interesting for kids who grow up as pandemic babies, because it's been so different for parents and it's this new world. I think, for us, a couple of things changed, or a couple of things we noticed. And the first is, that parents were more isolated than ever before, that the mothers groups and the places you used to pop into to get out of the house when you needed to be there around other people and what have you, that got taken away, as did grandparents and, doulas and support systems. As it just, especially early on, there was such distancing happening, which is really challenging for new parents and parents who need a break and they need relief and on all of that. And so our community on the app was, we essentially tripled the activity because parents were looking for a space to come together and talk about what they were going through and, to feel that piece of it. And also what we learned is that with remote work and hybrid work and all of that, in some ways, it's amazing for the flexibility of what you just said. The fact that you can just feed versus pump, hallelujah, right? When you need to, or all those things that make a huge difference across the board. But there is still this strain of having to work that into your work day or still schedule around it. And there's other things. Then you're on Zoom and do they hear the baby, or do you turn the screen off, or can I turn the screen off? And it's really interesting because I think in some ways, what you may not need to find a place as much, but you need other things more, access to other people or what have you, which kind of takes me back again to why comprehensive nature of support is so important, because it looks different for each parent at each stage. And it looks so different right now in this shifting post-pandemic world that we're in. Well, still pandemic world right now, right?
I know. I'm about to have my second pandemic baby. So I feel like that's all I know. And it is hard because I can say I definitely felt super isolated, and mostly because I'm newer to the Chicago area. I'm not from here. My husband was born and raised here. And so just trying to navigate what's right, what's wrong with having the baby in the pandemic. What are the boundaries we're setting? What are we doing? And then now going into it again, you're saying how restricted things were right when the pandemic started. And we're starting to see that here again. There's a few hospitals that aren't allowing doulas again. And it's so just detrimental to maternal mental health. And it's really sad. And that's also another concern. It's you can't have COVID when you're delivering, because if you do, if I had COVID while I'm giving birth, my doula can't be present. I'm delivering at a birthing center this time. I can't deliver there. I risk out. I have to go to the hospital to be monitored. There's all these different things that change. So it's like, okay, so how do we set this bubble up again, like around ourselves and navigate that, even with my family not living here, like having to travel if they're on airplanes and whatever, do we feel comfortable with them being around a newborn? And, just like it's been so things like you never thought you ever had to deal with before. And I'm like such a carefree, go with the flow person. And motherhood has changed that. Motherhood, and especially in a pandemic. But I think it is really easy to feel isolated because even now, like I'm 33 weeks pregnant and I'm still nursing my daughter who's 16 months. And so I kind of feel isolated in that. Like she wasn't nursing as much and then we got sick and now she's like nursing all the time. And plus my milk supply dipped in pregnancy. So there was a time where it was really painful for me and now it's starting to get better. But I think my milk's starting to come in more. So she's wanting to nurse more again. And I'm like, oh right. Crap. Like I thought that this was just going to be like a before nap, before bed. And right when you wake up, because that's what we were doing. But now she's like, wait a second, like there's more milk there. And I'm like, wait, am I just going to be like a cow, like with these two kids, like feeling like a dog with a litter? Like, I don't know.
Oh my goodness. Wow. It's so interesting. Well, I mean, everything is so like every journey, every child's so different, right? Mm-hmm. And like her being so in tune with what's the changes that are happening in your body and where it goes. I mean, man, that's going to be a whole new experience. Right. Tandem, are you getting, tandem nursing is then down that path and what have you. But I think the isolation piece, it's like, it's not only because we need people around to take the strain off, but you also just want to share in all those moments with people, the first smile and the first steps and all those things. It's like parenthood is meant to be done in community, and we're just in this place where it's so different. And I think what I can imagine must be so challenging also is that, parenthood is always like every day is a new normal. And so you're constantly, there's new decisions to be made. Is this safe? Or what about this? Am I doing like the sleep right? Or the like integrating new foods, or there's always these things. And so when you have this layer of pandemic on top of it, where it's like, should I see people, or should I go here? Do I wear a mask, or is it safe to do this? Or someone notifies you this. It's like a whole other spinning wheel of like mental load, energy that's in place. And I just like, my hat goes off to all parents, because it's really hard to navigate that and to stay centered with your intuition and to get the care and self-care and all those things that you need. And I think, certainly from a nursing perspective, all that stress has such an impact on milk supply and, where you go, which creates more stress. And so we need to be so compassionate with one another and so kind during all that's going on, because there's no right or wrong. And we're like reinventing things as we go. And it's really just about being nourishing, like at the end of the day, being there for one another. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's like the whole point of apps like yours though, too, is like someone like me who didn't have a lot of people here, and especially a lot of people here in the same season of life, like having a place to be able to connect, and especially in a non-judgmental community, and having a place to be like, hey, any other pregnant nursing mamas out there dealing with this? Like, what did you do? What worked for you? Like, how did you get through it or whatever, and having a place to ask. Cause I feel like, I don't know tons of like pregnant nursing moms and people who are maybe going to try tandem. I don't have like a set plan. I'm like, we'll see if it works. We'll see if it doesn't. I don't know. Type thing.
And you need so many answers in the moment. It's like you couldn't, as much as you read things or sort of prepare for all those things, breastfeeding in particular, but in the NICU or tandem nursing or all those things, it's really, that's why you just need people around you all the time for when something comes up and you just need to check in, or you need a different approach or what have you, just knowing that you've got this place of people you can turn to. And I remember one woman, we were in Baltimore when we were on the bus, and there was a woman who came on the bus when she was by herself, and she was kind of walking around, and she was just standing there. And she said, I have a baby in the NICU, and she's been there for 8 weeks. And this is the first place I've gone other than my house and the hospital. And it was just like, for her to have a safe space to go, to be able to be around other women who could help, just like answer her questions and be there for her and kind of like make her feel bolstered during this time period was so vital. And I think in some ways that's such a it may seem like a small thing to hold space or to build space for us to navigate this time period, but it can make all the difference between a mother being able to make it another day or to keep, her, like, the postpartum depression at bay or manageable, because the realities of those moments are so hard, and they're even harder right now in the world we live in.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it is very needed. And I know one thing that you kind of see with some of the breastfeeding numbers is the lack of support or not knowing where to turn to, because when it comes down to it, your pediatrician is not a breastfeeding expert. And your OB may not be as well. And so the lactation consultants or lactation counselors are really important. And even then, sometimes it's hard to find a good one. I remember when Jovi was in the NICU, the one that was at the hospital, I was like, the latch doesn't feel right. And she's like, oh, I think it looks fine, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I don't know, something's off. So after we brought her home, a couple weeks later, I went to a different lactation consultant, and she had like a huge, super thick lip tie. She couldn't like open her mouth to get my nipple in, and a tongue tie, and getting those released actually helped our breastfeeding journey so much. And, it wasn't really, that's usually not something that a lot of pediatricians diagnose, usually lactation consultants, but even then you have to find the right fit. And I remember after a while just kind of wanting to make sure everything was okay. And I found this amazing lactation group that comes to your home. And that was important for me, because I just, I didn't go anywhere with my daughter for so long. Like, I even remember like going to Costco, like I would be right when my daughter would like go to sleep, and like my mother-in-law would come watch her for an hour while I ran to Costco by myself. Cause I'm like, how do I take a newborn out in public? Especially now, like, how do I carry groceries and get my, like, what is there like a class on like, okay, unload the groceries, then buckle your newborn in, and then, like, what order is this supposed to go in? I don't know.
Right. Oh my gosh. I so remember being there.
And now I'm feeling that again with the second one coming. I'm like, okay, so how do I take 2 kids out just to go get groceries? Like, what do I do?
Yeah, there's just there's that constant barrage of questions, right? That's always, how do I do this? How do I do this? Because again, it's like really, I mean, that's the mantra I kept telling myself, is every day is a new normal. Like, okay, I'm going to figure this out, or I have to kind of, but you need lots of places to turn. You need your best friends. You need your OBGYN for certain things. You need like strangers who are in that same phase of life or have been there. You need someone in the grocery store to say, hey, dude, try this. I used to do this with my baby, or what have you. That sort of shared knowledge and just like support and what have you. It's like vital during this time period, because you are constantly having to figure out new things. And then I think the other important thing is that you're also telling yourself, like, you're being gentle with yourself. That even when you have all those, how do I, and navigating it and what have you, however you did it was great. Right.
Yeah. I would love for you to share a little bit more about like if I'm entering in a goal into the app, or if I'm saying I'm getting to this date or whatever, is there kind of prompts or different things in there along the way?
Yeah, so it is. There's two main pieces of content that are situated around your goal and the age of your baby and what have you. And one is content. So it's really informative. It's, what do you need to know about biting? What do you need to know about teething? Or, what do you need to, cluster feeding, right? Because all of those things they could be surprising, but there are a lot of commonalities with baby's development around feeding, for example. And so all of that is timed because you really need to know, at 4 months, there might be a sleep regression or things might be happening. And so it's really helpful. We try and think ahead in the content we serve you and the information you get every day that sort of much like a pregnancy app does, sort of helps you think about what is this developmental journey and look like for you. And some of it is fun and playful. Like here's our favorite playlists to get the milk flowing and things to do. And some of them are very information driven. And then there's a whole other section that is that we call love notes. That's really built around the encouragement and sort of the mental cheering on, especially if we know that you're at the beginning of your goal, for example, and you maybe need to hear, you're just getting the hang of this, or you maybe need to hear more and more. Or if you're at the end of it, if we know you've been doing it for a year and you're thinking about weaning, then the love notes are targeted more around how you think about transitioning and the bittersweet nature of saying goodbye to your journey and what that means and what have you. And so we really, I met 5,000 parents personally on the tour, and we've served over 40,000 parents on the app. And so every conversation we've had, we've used as a team to say, how could that become information, content, interactions with you that show up? And so those are all timed for you and show up in the app when you need them. And then there's notifications. And as we're looking ahead, we're going to do we're adding some really fun features that just really reward and celebrate you for the commitment of nursing and pumping. Because I think, man, we're rock stars. You're rock stars for all that you do, because you do it so much. And just to kind of feel not just like how many ounces am I producing, but just someone that's really celebrating how much time and love and energy you're putting into this phase for your baby and your family.
Mm-hmm. Those reminders are so awesome that you have that, and that you can tailor it toward your journey. Because I'm sure that so needed. I can't imagine weaning.
Right? Yeah, you're still in the throes of it, about to like continue to be. Mm-hmm.
But I think it's just like, because I feel like she's not ready, so I feel like I can't take it away from her, type of thing. But like I said, we'll see when the next baby comes, how everything goes.
Well, and I actually think weaning is something we don't talk about enough.
Yeah.
Because it's sometimes can be as hard to think about the stopping, both from an emotional and a logistical perspective, as it can be to establish the relationship and get started. Because in the beginning, you and your baby are learning one another, and you're like, you have to figure this out together. And then kind of to your point, you get to this beautiful place where you're in sync and you're flowing. And then it's kind of like a relationship. Like one person wants to end it or the other doesn't, or you're not always in sync with how that works. And you have to like help your body transition from continuing to make milk and all of that. And so more and more we're finding that actually parents come to Pumpspotting a lot because of like how you kind of end that, and also needing emotional support either way. Like I'm ready to, and I have guilt feelings about that, or I'm not ready to, but they are, my baby or my child is, and I have guilt feelings about that. Or weaning just stopped because I was sick or something happened, and now I have emotional feelings because it was taken away from me. It's also another part of the journey that is so wonderful and complex and loaded that you need people around you and you need information so that you can navigate it well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I recently had a listener write in and asked if we could talk about weaning on a podcast, because I've had breastfeeding podcasts before, but I haven't had a weaning one. And I had a friend who, when her daughter, I don't remember how old her daughter was, but she ended up getting sick and having to get on this medication immediately. And on this medication, you can't breastfeed. And so she had to just stop. And she said it was the hardest thing because her daughter would like look at her and just like hit her, like be like so mad because she couldn't breastfeed. And she would just be sitting there bawling, like, you know, like she didn't have a choice. She had to take this medication. It was a life-saving medication, and she couldn't breastfeed on it. And so her journey did come to an abrupt ending. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like I just look at Jovi and I'm like, she would be so pissed. And that had to have been so emotionally like tough to go through.
Yeah, because you're in this space where you're in this place where that bonding and that nourishment has been sort of taken from both of you, and it's what have you, because so much, like, again, I kind of go back, I sound like a broken record, but go back to being gentle with ourselves, because so much is out of our control, whether it's feeding or parenthood or pandemics. And, I think, you can try and know how to do it, or you can have expectations of the way your breastfeeding journey might go, or the ending nature of what it might look like. And, if the only thing that remains true is that it's ever changing, and it might not be, what we expected and what have you. And so we have to give ourselves and definitely one another grace to just roll with this, however, the best ways we can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Before we wrap up, I'd love for you to tell us about your podcast.
Yeah, so we just had been talking to so many parents who were in the trenches of this nursing and feeding journey that we thought we would bring it to life. And so we have a podcast called The Pump Spot, and it's where we just have nourishing conversations about the ways we nurse and pump with parents who are in the act of it and experts who are there. And it's just really about trying to nourish one another.
Yeah, that's amazing. Awesome. So where can people find your app, download it, connect with the community, all of that good stuff?
Yeah, we are at Pumpspotting on Instagram and social channels, and we're pumpspotting.com. You can find the app on the App Store and Google Play. And, if you work for a company or are an employer, you can reach out to us through the pumpspotting.com website, and we would love to talk about support.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast, and thank you for everything that you've done. That's so amazing. I think creating this community, finding places to pump and nurse, knowing that you're not in it alone is so vitally important. So I just want to thank you so much for the work that you've put into this for this community.
Well, it's a great honor to be here, and congratulations. So excited for you and your next phase.
Yeah, I'm excited, nervous.
Amazing. So great.
Thanks for listening. That's so cool. I love hearing people's stories and then how they create something. She's like, I had this idea for this app, and then they do it. Cause I feel like I always have different ideas and I just don't do it. So I'm always really inspired by people who are like, I just really saw a need for this thing and I took action and I did it. So it was really inspiring listening to Amy and, just kind of her motivation behind it. And then everything that now Pumpspotting has turned into, even, that van driving around is so cool, and the podcast and just all the resources that they're trying to offer mamas. So that's so amazing. I'm so happy that she came on the podcast. Make sure, again, you go back, listen to last week's about Needed. We have some awesome episodes coming up. I am recording a ton before the baby comes. So make sure that you reach out to me, send me who you want to hear, what topics you want to hear. Whenever you send me topics, I write everything down. But sometimes it's a issue of finding the right person to speak to that topic. So it's like, oh yeah, that'd be really good. Now I need to find the right person to come on to talk about this, because that's hard. You don't want to just like get some random person. I try to find like an expert in a certain area, or somebody, you know, who has a lot of experience in a certain area to be able to speak to that topic, to be able to share with you guys. So I want to make sure that it's good content, but I love hearing from you and getting those topics. So make sure that you keep sending them out. And then this week we are in February. I can't believe it's February. I feel like my pregnancy went really slow for a while, and now I'm like, holy crap. Like, I am due in 5 weeks, and that is soon. And we have a lot to do at home, and just, you never know when the baby's going to come. It's getting close to that point where in a couple weeks, you're technically considered full term. So then it's like, oh, maybe baby could come any day, or in 3 weeks. So it's just like such a, I don't know, mental game and physical game. My hips hurt, and I feel like my pubic bones are being pulled apart. So that's really fun. And I've had some painful Braxton Hicks that I've had to kind of breathe through, lots of cramping. And it's only happened a few times, and just as Braxton Hicks do, it didn't last, you know, it was about on and off for 45 minutes, and then it stopped. So, Vito was like, "Are you in labor?" I'm like, "I don't know. These feel like contractions, but I better not be, because it's not time." And then they went away. And I'm also wondering too, if like still breastfeeding Jovi, I was doing some reading and research, and that can contribute to contractions. It can give you contractions, but it's not going to send you into labor unless you are at risk for preterm labor, or you have some other sort of like high risk thing. Then sometimes your provider might be like, "Hey, like maybe you should wean," or whatever. But it's not an issue with me. So, because one time I was just laying in bed nursing her in the morning, and my contractions were not fun. On and off for 45 minutes. I was breathing through them, and I'm like, am I going into labor? This is crazy. But I wasn't. So sometimes when she's nursing a lot, I get some contractions. So maybe that will help me not go all the way to 41 weeks. I don't know. We'll see. I'm also doing physical therapy and chiropractic care. My chiropractor is an acupuncturist, and she said around 40 weeks we can start labor-inducing acupuncture. So I'm like, yes, let's do it. I feel like with Jovi, I had no problem going to 41 weeks. I hit 40 weeks. I'm like, I'm fine. She's going to come when she comes. And yeah, you're definitely anxious, but this time around, I think I'm just in a lot more pain. And I definitely don't want to get induced, but, well, I can't. I'm at a birthing center and they don't do inductions there, but, I would like to help my body out along naturally as much as I can. So I will keep you guys up to date on all of that. All right. Welcome to February, the month of love. We are going to have a sex expert on this month. I'm going to do it around Valentine's Day. She's a lot of fun, and we talk about just, kind of like marriage and sex and, things that like the seasons that couples go through. And it was really great talking with her. So I know you guys will love that episode. All right. Have a good week, and I will talk to you next week. Bye.
If you want to be the most interesting person at the cocktail party, well, hop on over and listen to the Brain Candy podcast.
Our award-winning content will have you laughing while you're learning.
We read all the best articles, books, and studies, and keep up with new TV shows, documentaries, and pop culture. And then we cram it all into 2 shows a week.
Conspiracy theories, cannibal rabbits, unsolved mysteries, the history of the Walkman. There's something for everyone.
The Brain Candy podcast. Find our link in the show notes.
Or simply search for the Brain Candy podcast on your podcast app.